Article
20. I'm happy to speak in this bill this evening, and I want to first of all declare an interest that I have no interest. I'm not related to the famous Greyhound master McGrath, the statue of New Gavin, but I'm not related to him. No bloodline going back. As the Minister made clear in his opening remarks during the second stage of this bill in the Seanad, the Greyhound racing sector contributes a substantial number of jobs to the economy, estimated at 5,000 people as recently as 2017. Mr. Jim Power, economic consultant. The sector also contributes 300 million annually into local economies. In addition, it is estimated that there are approximately 7,000 Greyhound owners, with an estimated 12,000 people deriving economic benefit from the sector. And that is not small change in rural areas. It's further estimated that more than 14 million people have attended Greyhound racing meetings since 2002. And that's a lot of people, and they enjoy themselves and they contribute as well. On a positive note, I want to welcome the Minister's clarification that during the course of his drafting, a number of changes were made to the bill. One such change places a greater influence on the fair procedures, particularly with regard to the conduct of investigations by the board in respect of possible breaches of racing regulations and regard to the conduct of hearings by the control committee into suspected breaches. And that's very important. We have to have this above board, it has to be open and transparent, and our animals looked after 100%. We should at all times be trying to improve fair procedures. I also want to welcome Section 12 of the bill that provides for disclosure of potential conflicts of interest. That's why I disclosed that I wasn't related to the great Master McGrath. As I understand it, this is a new provision and was recommended in the Indicon report. That being said, we have debated this issue for some time now. In April 2017, when the matter was very much in the public sphere, following the sale of Hall's Crosstrack, and that was done in a very strange fashion. At that time, I called on Minister Creed to immediately engage with the members of the Irish Greyhound Owners and Breeders Federation, IGOBF, in an attempt to resolve the ongoing crisis within the greyhound industry. As we remember from the time, calls were made for the removal of the entire Irish Greyhound Board. There were many calls made. The crisis was made worse by the refusal of the board, who were appointed by a Labour Fine Gael government. And I'm not going to go at Labour tonight. My colleagues here had enough of it, chastising of them today. But they were. And then we had Deputy Kelly telling us all what we should do. And after appointing the board, and he wanted to get him sacked, to listen to the frustrations and concerns of the ordinary members. We had defenders of the board, like Deputy Michael Lowry, attempting to shift the blame onto members and to insist that problems are simply down to misunderstandings over the role of the Irish Greyhound Board. That was utterly nonsensical, and it can now be seen for the condescending viewpoint that it was. The rank and file greyhound breeders and owners know their industry just as well as the apparent experts on the board. They can see that what needs to be done, and they should be listened to. Always we should listen to the Ndina Bioga, the Dina Arontirum, and the people on the ground. A change of the existing governance arrangements will go some way towards addressing these concerns, as it will be the first indication that the priority is not simply to maintain the status quo and the interests of the board, but to put the good of the industry first. We cannot allow a situation to deteriorate any further. So I'm glad the Minister has, and indeed the board and its defenders, are coming to their senses and now willing to take account of the unanimous vote of no confidence that occurred at a meeting in the Horse and Jockey on this issue in March 2017, and be me on so, and that was very comprehensive. Now I want to deal with our own our greyhound racing industry in Tipperary, and indeed I'm delighted that a very successful meeting was held last Sunday, which I attended, and last Monday and Tuesday. I'm really pleased that it went off well. I haven't got the figures yet if there were accidents or incidents with hares being damaged or hurt. I hope there wasn't. It's very well policed by Board and Gun and by independent arbitrators now. Of course, we had the usual cabal of protesters. Sadly, I missed them. I went in a different gate. I didn't know they were the next gate because I wouldn't divide them at any time. I'd welcome them to see what goes on. And I want to ask them to concentrate on another practice that's going on. We have excellent coursing clubs in Tipperary. We have Knockgraffin, we have Poundmucka, and we have other ones in Clougheen, and we have out in Cappoquin in County Waterford, and East Cork and Deputy O'Keefe's area. And North Tipperary as well, Cashel, and indeed Galbally. And we can't have our coursing meetings for the last number of years because a certain protected species of people, protected species we have now, go out with lutchers and terriers and put 5 or 6 or 8 of them after a little hare or a rabbit and tear them asunder. And no one says a word about it. And they're out lamping at night, terrorising farmers, and the farmers try to stop them because they're frightening cattle and intimidating the public. They'll threaten the farmers. They'll then cut the water pipe. You'll have a massive water bill when you put out the cattle in springtime. You won't see the lake until then. And then they'll cut the electric fence wires. This is terrorism by a band of protected species, I said, that no one can deal with. and no one want to deal with it. And we complain about the greyhounds that are muzzled. And I said it here when John Gormley was in government, and I gave 2 hours one night at the VideoParliament Parliamentary Party meeting with the Taoiseach of the day, Taoiseach Brian Cowan, and Minister Gormley at a meeting for 2 hours, talking about when a breeding bitch is a breeding bitch. I gave up that night on what we were listening to. 70 or 80 was there. The country go around the tubes before the crash, and we talked about when a breeding bitch is a breeding bitch. And I said that the next thing they want to stop is the cat chasing the mouse. And that's the folly of it. Our country pursuits must be protected. We don't come here into Dublin telling them you can't have this, you can't have that. They have enough to hear to protect the people that are being shot every night and murdered. Not that mine's going down interested in what we're doing in Tipperary. We're working right. You're doing your best too, Minister. We want our country practices, our sport protected. It's not a sadism, and it's not a sadistic sport. They're well nurtured, and the coursing clubs, they look after it and they nurture the hares. And we had them in preserves some years ago, ready for the coursing. Hey presto, animal rights coming along, cut the wire, left them out across the road, across the motorway to be crushed and rolled by trucks on the N8 motorway. And they talked in it. Another time, a good few years ago, they came and broke glass and put it into the tracks. Imagine the damage that would do to the greyhound's feet, or the hare for that matter either. So, I mean, we have to have balance here. And we don't want this kind of intimidation that ordinary country people, an industry that we had, trying to make a bit of fun, but everyone has a greyhound, has to have a box and a kennel, has to have veterinarian fees. It's an industry, and we better see that. We don't try to shut down what goes on here in Dublin, Deputy Brown and others, and respect the right. We don't go interfere, and we don't stop them having their pursuits. But we must stop the marauding terror gangs that are going around terrorising the people and spotting places in for setting up for robberies and everything else, and are terrorising the community in Tipperary, and it's not good enough. And we must get the animal rights people. Why won't they focus on that? And they put up on Facebook so many hairs over the shoulder, torn asunder by lurchers and terriers and everything else. No muzzle, no respect, no nothing on it, slaughter, and the huge betting industry going on in the back of it as well. Gangs them in around fields, frightening housewives and farmers and everybody else. Good, I hand over to my colleagues.